This episode is brought to you by Voyager and Matcha. Stay tuned for more information on both later in this episode. What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, and this is the Wolf of Wall Street's podcast. Today's guest is the founder and creator of one of the world's most popular cryptocurrencies. Founded in 2011, Litecoin has caught the attention of traders, investors, OGs, and newcomers for its unique set of properties and also its similarities to its cousin, Bitcoin. Having Charlie on today, I hope to better understand what his motivation was for creating Litecoin, where the project fits into the market today, and how he views the space now compared to how he viewed it 10 years ago. Charlie Lee, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into the questions, once again, you're listening to the Wolf of Wall Street's podcast, where twice a week I talk to your favorite personalities from the worlds of Bitcoin, finance, trading, art, music, sports, and politics. This podcast is powered by Blockworks, the fastest growing media company in the digital asset space. You can check them out at blockworks.co, and you can check out everything else I have going on at thewolfofallstreets.io. So now to get in today's episode. For context, it is May 20th. So yesterday, 5/19, was one of the most brutal days that we have seen in the crypto space, maybe the worst that we've seen except for the COVID crash. What are your thoughts on everything that's happening right now in the market, having seen basically everything that this market has to offer for over 10 years?
I actually don't think yesterday was that bad. I mean, I've been in the space for so long. I've seen some pretty bad days. Yesterday is definitely a bad day, but I wouldn't say it's the worst day. Yeah, the COVID crash was pretty bad. It lasted a bit longer than this, but it rebounded really quickly. So I mean, it was painful, but I think the worst is over. So.
I mean, in your experience, having gone through it so many times, were there top signals? I mean, you're notorious, obviously, for being very good at selling the top. So were there top signals here that had you, concerned that potentially we would see a drop like this?
I mean, there's people see top signals all the time, right? So the thing is, because it's gone up so fast, like so quickly, corrections like this is just normal. It's kind of par for the course for crypto, right? Every time we in a bull market, it doesn't just go up in a straight line. Everyone knows this, right? There's always like 30%, 40% crashes along the way. It goes up like another 3x and then does another 30, 40% crash. It's very volatile, and that's kind of just expected. The thing that I kind of see with these crashes, what actually happens is you have a lot of panic selling, right? People with weak hands are selling during the crash. They buy high and sell low, which is exactly the opposite of what you want to do. And what happens is these weak hands actually sell into stronger hands, right? Into people to hodlers who are buying the dip. So that's what happens with these crashes. You shake out the weak hands, and then you have stronger hands, and then that's what will take us to the next level, right? So you kind of need these crashes for Bitcoin or for crypto to go up in price, like to keep going up in price for this bull run.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. In this case, all of the on-chain metrics show that exactly that happened. That, it was retail that was new, that had their coins on exchanges that were selling, and all the old wallets were buying and didn't sell or move anything. So I guess it really is par for the course. I guess just this time it was over 50%. And I think there was a narrative of these super cycles and a 50% drop could never happen again and all of those things, institutional floor, right? So I guess this time it is not different, right?
Yeah, and everyone says this time it's different. It's not going to be like last time, and then the history repeats itself, and the same thing happens. But yeah, it's unfortunate because retail investors, they hear about these coins, or they hear about crypto like Bitcoin, even like Dogecoin at the high, right? And then they pile in at the high, and then when it crashes 30, 40%, unfortunately those are the people that can't handle the crash. They're not used to it. They can't hodl through it, and they sell. Which is unfortunate because they lose a lot of money that way. Yeah.
But do you think that this time with Doge and then SHIB, which was a knockoff on Doge, and do you think that all these things were even a bigger sort of retail bubble than we've seen in the past? I mean, I know 2017 was basically purely retail speculation. So, but I mean, it was a little crazy this time with the meme coins and TikTok and, just how much retail now has access.
It was definitely crazier than 2017, but if you remember, 2017 was pretty crazy too. Like Bitcoin was all over the news, all over CNBC. There's like thousands of ICOs, like everyone's piling into all these ICOs, which is no different than like SHIB and all these dog tokens this time around, right? So it's just retail buying into something they don't understand, into like, yeah. So it's pretty similar. Yeah.
Do you think that these moves shake the narrative in any way, the institutional narrative? Do you think that, or an ETF coming, the things that we would expect, do you think that seeing this 50% in a week type drop, would make them more disinterested?
A little bit, but people like Michael Saylor, they have pretty strong hands, right? They
Yeah.
they believe in Bitcoin, in the promise of Bitcoin, that it's a better store of value than anything else in the world, gold included. So I don't think in the long term it hurts that narrative. The problem is for something like an ETF, I think the regulators might be concerned about the volatility of Bitcoin, and that may delay the ETF launch, which is unfortunate. But yeah, we just have to be more. Bitcoin needs to grow to become more stable and not as crazy as this. Over time, it will be.
So you think that as prices increase and as we get more awareness and perhaps more regulation, that we lose some of the volatility?
Yeah, especially if Bitcoin, if when it grows bigger, right? If the market
Yeah.
cap of Bitcoin is, um, whatever, $5-10 trillion, then it will be less volatile.
Kind of remove some of the excitement for traders, right?
Yeah, I mean, for traders, volatility is good, right? You make money off of volatility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where I touched on it in the intro, obviously Litecoin, has been one of the top names in the space since you created it. I'm curious to go back to why at that point you made the decision to do that, having seen what Bitcoin was and what did you think needed to be improved?
Yeah, so this is in 2011, almost 10 years ago.
Crazy.
October, yeah, crazy. October of 2011. Back then, there were about a dozen altcoins. So Litecoin is not actually the second or the first altcoin, but it's one of the only ones still exist, like still running since 2011. Um, I created it just for fun. It was a project that I kind of just, yeah, it wasn't supposed to be. I didn't expect it to actually become what it is today. And one of the kind of thing, the reason why I created it is because all these other altcoins in existence back then were not launched fairly. So there were all of them had pre-mines, just to enrich the founders. So I decided to launch something that is, very similar to Bitcoin, except for a few tweaks, make it so that it can be CPU mined at that time, and launch it fairly. So no pre-mines. The launch was announced ahead of time, so everyone knew about it before it launched. Software was launched before the network went live, so people can test out their computer to mine Litecoin at the beginning. What else? The launch date was voted on by the community. The launch time, so because everyone's in a different time zone, so it's kind of impossible to launch at a time that's perfect for everyone. So I
Right.
put up a poll in on Beat Bitcoin Talk, let people vote on what's the best time. I think it launched like at really late for me, but that's fine. Um, and then what else? Yeah, so people can have their have Litecoin, the miner running, and then at launch they just had to change the configuration, restart the miner, and it'll be mining on the main net as opposed to a test net. So that was, yeah, I tried to make it as fair as possible, and I think that's one of the reasons why it succeeded where all the other coins failed, is because people supported Litecoin knowing that it's not unfairly enriching one person or a group of people. I myself had to mine and buy coins off an exchange just like anyone else.
That's crazy. So it's really early 2011. What got you into Bitcoin in the first place and passionate enough because it was so small and nascent at that time to really see that, hey man, this is the future. This is what I want to do. I got in 2016. At that point, it was pretty big and pretty obvious, right? So it really was no risk at that point. What you did, it's just incredible to me that people had that passion that early.
Yeah. When I excuse me, when I got in, when I found out about Bitcoin, I pretty much knew right away this was going to be huge. Um, I I have experience with gold and silver, knowing that it's like good money compared to fiat currency. So I saw the need for, um, something better than fiat currencies, and Bitcoin kind of fill that. It's a better form of currency. It's actually a better form of gold. It's very similar to the properties of gold, but it's better because it's digital. You can transfer it to anyone, anywhere around the world quickly and cheaply. And yeah, so I got hooked right away. Yeah. So I mean, I didn't put all my money into it, but I invested into it knowing that it's going to become huge. I mean, it actually exceeded my expectation. I remember telling people back then when Bitcoin was about $10 that it's going to hit $5,000 in the next 10 years. Right. That was my prediction. It would hit 5,000, which is pretty crazy. Like going
insane from $10. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So people didn't believe me, but it exceeded it, right? It's almost 10 times more than that. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And with that said, I would imagine that a large part of the community probably already thought you were crazy at 5,000. So they probably, speaking of weak hands or strong hands, I would imagine very few people held past a few hundred or 1,000 or 5,000. Or most of the people, do you think, who are that early, even, still holding those coins, or do you think they long since have sold them?
I would say most people sold them. Like if you do an investment and went up 10x,
Yeah.
you're like, I hit the lottery. I should sell most of it and take in the profit. It's actually pretty hard to hodl through all of it, right? It's not everyone like thinks, oh, if I got in 2011, I would be like a millionaire now. It's not it's not easy to actually have that conviction, because it crashed a lot, right? It went from when I first bought my Bitcoin from Mike Hearn actually at $30. In the next like 2-3 months, it dropped to $2. So it had like a 90% crash. And that's huge, right? That's crazy. So to be able to like hodl through that and not like think that Bitcoin is going to zero is tough. Most people would just quit and leave the space. So it went from 30 to 2 and then went to like 100 and dropped to 50, went to like 280 and then dropped to 100, went to 1,000, dropped to 200. I mean, you've seen after that, you've seen like it goes up a lot, but then drops a lot too. So it's definitely shakes you out. It's easy.
Which has got to be like, I would imagine for you, I always argue about this, that people always say the OGs are so lucky. Like you touched on it, right? If I had just known about it, but there's no luck involved if you still are holding any of that. I mean, it's just insane to think of having hands that strong.
Yeah. And a lot of people who actually are lucky are the ones that bought Bitcoin or just happened to own a lot of Bitcoins in the beginning and forgot about it.
Right? The dust wallet.
Yeah. For like 5 years. And then they're like, wait, Bitcoin? I might have some, and then dig up their old wallet and found like a few thousand Bitcoins in it. Those are the people that are lucky, because if they had followed it, they wouldn't have been able to hold on to it.
If you've been paying any attention to me or have been following me for any length of time, then you know I absolutely love Voyager. Every single time someone tweets me or asks me, hey, Scott, where do you trade and invest? The answer is always Voyager. They offer over 50 assets to trade, commission free. I save so much money, it almost feels too good to be true. And that's not even my favorite part of Voyager. My favorite part is the insane interest that I earn. Up to 10% on my USDC, 6.25% on my Bitcoin, and 5.25% on my Ethereum. Whether I'm trading or not, I'm earning interest on what's sitting on the platform. Making money literally couldn't be easier, and there are no lockups or limits. Go to thewolfofallstreets.link/Voyager. That's VOYAGER, and download the Voyager app and use code SCOTT25 to get $25 in free Bitcoin when you create your account. What are you waiting for? Go download Voyager. Guys, matcha is absolutely awesome. If you've traded on Uniswap or PancakeSwap or SushiSwap or any of them, you know that all of these dexes have their issues. Well, matcha allows you to trade on all of them at the same time. It finds you the best price. It optimizes your gas fees so they're cheaper, and also allows you to use limit orders, which is huge because you don't have to be married to your screen, sitting there staring, willing your exit or entry to finally arrive. It's really mind-blowing. Once you go on matcha, I can assure you that you will never go back. To check it out, go to thewolfofallstreets.link/matcha. Guys, I'm telling you, go check out matcha right now. Were you actively using it and transacting in it back then? I mean, we all hear the stories of the billion-dollar pizzas. But, do you ever look back and go, man, if I had just not, bought this graphic design, this image or something from somebody?
Yeah. I mean, it's always the case, right? Basically anything because the price right now is so much higher than before. So anything you spent Bitcoin on is totally not worth it. I mean, I've bought stuff with Bitcoin through various merchants that set the Bitcoin or whatever, buying Amazon gift certificates. If you look back on it, you just regret everything. But in the end, like it's not, you can't really look back and nitpick everything you do.
No, I think most people in the community who are later kind of have the same feeling about Doge. I mean, if I'd held all the Doge that I once traded through those like hilarious cycles, I would have had like $50 million in Doge or something.
Yeah. I mean, at one point I had quite a bit of Doge to play around with. I actually sent them all to something called Doge Party. It's a counterparty fork. That went to $0, unfortunately. So all my Doge is locked up into a counterparty burn address or a Doge Party burn address.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. So speaking of people buying things with Bitcoin, obviously the big news of the last few months has been you can and then you can't buy a Tesla with Bitcoin. Do you think anyone in their right mind was going to actually buy a Tesla with Bitcoin?
I would.
Oh, so there you go. You're the first person I said who would do it. Everybody else is like, I wouldn't pay the taxes, deflationary asset.
I mean, I think in the end goal is Bitcoin is money, right? So it's where you keep your money, and then if all you have is Bitcoin, then you have to spend it to buy stuff, right? So, and it's a bit too risky right now to put everything into Bitcoin. But as it grows bigger and stabilizes, it becomes like the best form of money, and that's where you put most of your wealth in.
So you do still believe in the peer-to-peer cash narrative of Bitcoin? Because a lot of people, obviously, you started with it being, the white paper and having that narrative, but I think seemingly the majority of people are now onto the digital gold narrative that you talked about and sort of say maybe stable coins are better for transacting and there's better currencies than Bitcoin, but you still believe that it would be the ideal peer-to-peer cash in that perfect world.
It is. I think people are kind of confused about what it means to be peer-to-peer cash, right? So if you think about it, Bitcoin layer 1 is like gold, right? But Bitcoin layer 2 is like cash. So fiat currency or paper money used to be redeemable for gold. So the reason why paper money was invented is because it's easier to use, right? It's a layer 2 on top of gold. So you can always redeem it for gold if you want to. Just like right now, Lightning Network is layer 2. You can always redeem it for on-chain Bitcoin if you want to. But if you stay in the Lightning Network layer, then you can easily transact between peers, fast, quick, low fees, similar to what people do with paper currency, right? You can redeem for gold if you want to. That was back then. And then otherwise, you just transfer these paper currencies that are backed by gold, and everyone agrees that this is what the amount of gold that's stated on the paper. The best thing about Bitcoin layer 2 is you can't break unlike gold and paper currency, you can't break that bond. You can't break that link, right? What happened with the US government deciding that the paper currency is no longer backed by gold, then they just broke the link. But with Lightning Network, you can't do that. So that's a better form of kind of money than what we have today. And that is what fulfills Satoshi's vision, right? Layer 2 is where everything is cheaper, it's faster, it's even more private, and it works better as cash. And layer 1 is your store of value. It's similar to gold.
I thought Craig Wright fulfilled Satoshi's vision. No. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what he said. It's called BSV.
There's a lot of people actually think that. So
there are quite a few. It's pretty unbelievable. I mean, you were that early. I've never even asked anyone this because it always seems such a meme question. Do you have any idea who Satoshi is or was?
I have no idea. Unfortunately, like when I found out about Bitcoin, Satoshi already left the scene. I actually thought, I mean, it's kind of funny. When I found out about Bitcoin, I actually thought I was late to it because a few months before I found out about Bitcoin, the price was less than $1. So I found out about Bitcoin at the high. I mean, that's what happens to everyone basically. When people start talking about it, you start reading about it, it's when the price is peaking for that period, right? So yeah, I thought I was late, and Satoshi already left, so I wasn't able to talk to him. Would have been cool though.
Yeah, that would have been incredible. So you touched on the fact that when you started Litecoin, there were already like 10 altcoins, right?
Yeah.
So many. Now we have like 10,000, right?
Yeah.
And you also touched on the fact that when there were 10, they're not here. Litecoin is, Bitcoin is, and then we've obviously know the ones that grew from there. So how many of these 10,000, which will probably be 11,000 by next month and 12,000 next month, how many of these can possibly survive, and what happens to the market if they don't?
I think a lot of these coins will survive. I mean, it's hard to kill off a decentralized cryptocurrency or even like a centralized one. They just hang around. Uh, but only like a handful of them will actually be worth something of value, right? Only a handful of them will actually be used as money. And I'm obviously hoping that Litecoin will be one of them, but I know for sure that Bitcoin will be, right? So the market will kind of it will sort itself out over time, and it has, right? The stronger currencies rise to the top, and the weaker ones just disappear over time.
So do you think that they just sort of become a little playground for traders and go back and forth, but never have utility or any innovation? I mean, it's effectively what Doge is, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, most coins don't have any utility today.
In the first place,
They're all,
yeah.
they're all very speculative, right? Even a lot of the top coins, they don't even function as what they promise, but people are speculating on the future value, the future utility of the coin, and that's what happens. And the market will figure things out.
Right. But now, I mean, besides all the coins, obviously, we also now have an incredible amount of competitive and really useful and powerful blockchains, right? I mean, and we always hear, obviously, we know Ethereum, but all of the Ethereum killers. Do you think that there's a place for all of these? Do you think that they'll silo off into their very specific purposes and then, perhaps will be interoperable through things like Cosmos? Or do you think that it will really be a king of the hill, one man take all sort of situation?
I don't think it'll be a one man take all. I mean, a lot of Bitcoin maximalists think that um, Bitcoin will eventually like kill everything. That's not going to happen. There's always going to be a lot of currencies around um, fighting for the top spot. But it's in the end, I think a lot of these will be connected, like via Cosmo or something else. I think the end game is people will store their value in Bitcoin or crypto and not really care about what network the money is actually flowing through, right? Just like I've used this example many times. Just like when you swipe your credit card, you don't really know which bank gets contacted, who has to approve what for the money to go from your to the merchant, and then get from money to go from you to the merchant, right? This whole process is just opaque to you. And I think for crypto, eventually that's the same thing would happen. Like you pay with crypto, it could go through a network, it could be on chain, it could be something else, it could be layer 3, whatever it is. All that matters is that money goes from you to the merchant and you get the service or the product that you bought for.
So,
Yeah.
So much like you don't think about how your cell phone works anymore, and you don't think about how your email or the internet works. It's
Yeah.
just the underlying tech works, and you don't think about it. I mean, how far are we from a future where blockchain is that underlying technology of many of the things that we use on a day-to-day basis?
Um, it's hard to say. I think it's still quite a ways away. Um, but that's why there's still a lot of growth potential. I think that we'll get there eventually. The price will rise, the network will get bigger, the market cap will become huge. But by then, everything will be, people will be using Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto without even knowing it.
When you originally got into it, you talked about the fact that obviously you understood that it was better money, and it was 2000, 2011 after 2008 and 9 and 10. So there was obviously this grand awakening, I think, at least as to how insane central bank policy was. But that's ramped up by many multiples in the last year. Do you think that that is partially driving this renewed interest in Bitcoin? Do you think that your average person is starting to understand, or do you think that most people are still in the dark about their money?
Um, I mean, I agree. This it's definitely ramped up. Like the Fed has printed so much, like trillions of dollars last year. But I think that's inevitable. I think fiat currency has always has a limited lifespan. I think over the history of our existence, no fiat currency has lasted more than 200 or so years, and
Yeah.
we're kind of I think US dollar will eventually hit hyperinflation, and we'll go to zero, but it might not be in our lifetime, but it's going to happen. And Bitcoin obviously is going to take over, in my opinion, when that happens. In terms of people being more aware of that, I definitely think more people are becoming more aware of that. But still, like more than 90% of people are in the dark. It's still like just a small pocket of people that are aware of this. But yeah, it will take time for people to become aware of it. I think it's because like we're still used to it as a society, as like I was born into this fiat system, right? I don't know any better. And this generation, everyone's just used to fiat currency. So it will take like a generation or two for kind of the mindset to change, right? Nowadays, people are the babies today will be born into a world where Bitcoin exists. And when they grow up, they will learn about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and they will see and understand the difference and realize the potential of it. So it would be hard to teach an old dog a new trick. So if you look at people like Warren Buffett, they're never going to learn. So it will take a generation or two before everyone starts to realize the potential of Bitcoin.
But the toxicity of that generation about it is pretty astounding.
Yeah, because that's what got them rich, right? That's what they know and understand. So they're going to fight for it against Bitcoin with everything they have. So, yeah.
Do you think that that's what's happening? I mean, do you think that they see it as a legitimate threat, or do you think that they sort of still laugh it off and hope it'll go away? It seemed like for a very long time they were sort of just hoping it would go away, and now maybe they can't hope that anymore.
I don't know for sure. I think probably just a little bit of both. Some people still think it's going to go away, but it's not going to go away.
Yeah, I think we know that's not going to go away. So what's your involvement now with Litecoin? Obviously, everyone knows the famous story of how you sold it kind of right near the top, but that wasn't to exit your affiliation with it, correct?
Yeah, so I've been working on Litecoin pretty much full time since 2017 after I left Coinbase, managing director of the Litecoin Foundation. So working on adoption, pushing for adoption, and then development of Litecoin. Yeah, I mean, Litecoin is kind of is my baby, right? So I wanted to succeed. I just didn't want to be. I didn't feel like I need to be invested in the coin, because that's not what motivates me anyways. So it's not like it really does anything. It's just not having the financial aspect of it makes it more makes things more clear for me, because I just care about the adoption and success of the coin. Sometimes the price of a coin is a distraction. Right? The coin can pump for no reason, and then you feel like you're doing something good, but actually you may not be doing anything good. It's just that the market is just pumping everything, right? So I think not having this this conflict is just better for me. It's hard for people to understand, but that's fine.
No, I think that actually makes a lot of sense rationally, especially if people understand this market. People might not understand that if you were Jeff Bezos and you wouldn't want to have any Amazon stock. But I think in this market, when you see that the price doesn't necessarily determine the value, right? I mean, we see things that go absolutely nuts that are basically vapor. So it's very hard probably to differentiate the price from your motivation for doing it.
Yeah, and the difference between like crypto and regular stock is people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they're paid to increase shareholder value. So their job is to increase the price of the stock, and they're compensated with the stock to keep their interests aligned, right? Because they have a lot of stock, and then they want to work towards increasing their price, which helps themselves financially. So everything is aligned, and that's why that happens in the real world or in the normal stock public company world. But with cryptocurrency, it's different, right? I don't have Litecoin printed to give myself to incentivize me to pump the price of Litecoin. So it's very different. I mean, especially for Litecoin, which had a fair launch. There's a lot of other cryptos. They have huge pre-mines. Even Ethereum had a huge pre-mine. Then that's different. then they have a lot of coins that they can give out to developers to incentivize them to do the work, to pay them to do the work. But with Bitcoin and Litecoin and even Dogecoin, it's not the same, and it's hard for people to kind of understand why it's different.
So what does the future of Litecoin look like ideally for you? Just, I mean, you're working on it full time, basically, you said, and I know now your belief in what Bitcoin will be in the future. So where does Litecoin fit in?
Um, what I'm working with Litecoin right now is adding fungibility and privacy to it. Fungibility is something that is missing or is not as good in Bitcoin and Litecoin today. I think in terms of like properties of good sound money, Bitcoin and Litecoin has everything except for fungibility. And by fungibility, I mean every coin is indistinguishable from every other coin. It's kind of the opposite of the hype today about NFTs, right? NFTs is non-fungible tokens, but for money, you want it to be fungible. Any like $20 bill you spend should be indistinguishable from any other ones. So you don't care which one you spend. And it's not true today for Bitcoin and Litecoin, right? When you, if you really look into it, when you're spending coins, you should pick and choose which coin you spend without, so that it doesn't reveal any private information that you don't want to reveal, right? So if you got paid $10,000 for as a salary or whatever, if you use those coins to buy coffee, then the recipient will see that you have $10,000 in your bank account worth of whatever Bitcoin. And that's kind of information that you want to keep private, even if you have nothing to hide, right? Financial privacy is important. So what I'm working on is getting a technology called Mimblewimble onto Litecoin as extension blocks. So the project is called MWeb, which stands for Mimblewimble extension blocks. And that would add more privacy and more fungibility to Litecoin. And I think that's going to help it become a better form of money. And that's kind of my goal.
That makes perfect sense. So where do the existing privacy coins fit into the equation at this point, do you think? The Moneros, you know?
I like the coins like Monero, they're on the opposite kind of spectrum of, it's a trade-off between privacy and basically how should I say it, like being supported or being like liquidity, right? It's not, Monero's not on many exchanges, right? Because they don't like the fact that it's too private. I think privacy is good, but to a certain point, there's a trade-off, right? So I think
balance.
I'd like to see Litecoin kind of be more in the middle, where exchanges will still support Litecoin, but you always have the option to move your coins to the extension block and be more private and have more fungibility. We'll see how that plays out. But I do like Monero though. I think what they're doing is good. They're sticking to the path of just private by default. Everything is private, and that's the most important thing. I think there is definitely room for a coin like that.
Yeah, we need that polar end, even if it's not going to gain mass adoption. Obviously, it still obviously has its place. I'm curious to talk about the fungibility of Bitcoin, and we've seen the huge energy debate, of course, you know, brought to the forefront mostly by Elon Musk of late, but it's been around forever. Do you think that there will ever be potentially a premium on Bitcoin that's mined with renewables or green Bitcoin or something like that, which then again would kind of eliminate the fungibility, right? Because you'd have we've always talked about, you know, different tokens that have been touched by criminals or have been part of money laundering or different. So do you think that we have a world where there's a premium on certain kinds of Bitcoin?
I don't think so. And I think that would be bad. I mean, for it to be money, right? You don't want it for certain coins to be tainted. I think the whole energy debate is very silly. I think Bitcoin uses energy, but for a good reason, right? People use energy because it helps our lives. It increases our productivity, and Bitcoin definitely does that. So I think the energy use is worth it, and people should actually be talking about how to incentivize better use of energy, right? People shouldn't waste energy. There's incentivize others to use renewable energy, and that's already happening with Bitcoin mining. I think something like 70% plus of Bitcoin mining uses renewable energy. So my point of view is people should focus on doing that, right? Incentivize renewable energy usage as opposed to say people shouldn't use energy for certain things, and just tax things appropriately, and that would change behavior.
What do you think was underlying, Musk's decision to bring that into the forefront? It's not like anything had changed between the time he decided to allow Tesla to, to accept Bitcoin and just a couple months later when all of a sudden it was taboo in the energy usage. You can't tell me he didn't look into it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think he got pressure from his board or from whoever, right? It's just he got bored from the government, whatever it is. He wanted to get government subsidy for whatever credits, and then he wanted to appease those people, something like that. I would say he got pressured into doing this, and it's unfortunate. I think it is what it is. There's just all this FUD out there today about this energy usage, and we'll get past it. But it happens every time, right? When Bitcoin grows,
it's the same.
really
It's. I mean,
quickly.
it's either energy usage or used by criminals or one of the like 3 or 4 narratives that are recycled every single time. Isn't that frustrating for you? Have you seen it for so long?
I don't know. It is what it is. That's my opinion. It's just, yeah, you run into it and you run into all this FUD about Bitcoin is dying or mining death spiral. Everything gets recycled every 4 years. I get used to it.
I mean, how many times has China theoretically banned
Yeah, and they banned
crypto in
it
your lifetime?
right? Yeah, yeah, it's fine. I mean, and Bitcoin still keeps on going. Prices keep going higher over time. It's okay.
Well, doesn't Bitcoin just keep on going no matter what? Just by the way it's like it literally by its intrinsic properties and how it's designed. I mean, it can't be stopped.
Well, that's not 100% true. I mean, there are stuff that potentially could cause issues, like quantum computing could cause problems with Bitcoin. But I think we'll be able to handle it when it comes. There are definitely stuff, and there potentially could be a bug that could cause problems. I mean, that's why developers are so careful, right? They're so conservative in terms of upgrades. It's not where Ethereum is like making all these crazy changes, even like switching to proof of stake. Bitcoin is being conservative because for money to be good money to be useful, it has to be reliable first and foremost.
So what do you think of what Ethereum's doing? Do you think that there's a potential chance that this goes horribly wrong for them?
There's definitely a chance it will go horribly wrong, but because it's more centralized than Bitcoin, they can easily undo it, right? So I don't think it could go horribly wrong and cause Ethereum to die. I think like even like if you look at like the DAO hard fork, that's not even horribly wrong. It's just a lot of people lost a lot of money, and it's something that's survivable, but they did a hard fork and gave everyone their money back, right? So even something small like that, they are able to undo it. So if something does go horribly wrong, they'll just undo it and fix it. So, but that's not what you want from decentralized money, right? You don't want the Bitcoin developers to introduce like bugs and all of a sudden, hey, everyone stop what you're doing. Don't use Bitcoin to buy stuff for now. Let's take 2 days offline and let's fix it. That's not, you can't really do that with Bitcoin. But Ethereum, I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on quantum computing being a huge threat. How so? And how far away would that potentially be?
I'm definitely no expert in quantum computing. I think
Me either.
there may be like a handful of experts in quantum computing. My guess is it's still many years down the road, maybe like a decade or so before. It's just a pure guess from me, from what I can tell, before it becomes an issue. And basically, the threat is there are 2 things, right? One is mining can be made super efficient with quantum computing. So it depends on how bad it is, right? If it's just like a step up, like going from GPUs to ASICs, if everybody is like can produce hashes 10 or 100 times more efficient, then the market will sort itself out. Like everyone will be using the new quantum computing mining, they'll produce, and then the difficulty will go up and everything will be fine. But if it's truly broken, then Bitcoin just needs to change the mining algorithm to something that is quantum safe. And that's not too hard. that likely will require a hard fork, but there's ways to do it without a hard fork, I think. And the other thing that can be broken is the public-private key cryptography, right? If you're able to steal coins from someone's address, that's bad, right? So before that breaks, Bitcoin has to fix it. I mean, it's possible that that will never be broken, but you can't really say never for cryptography. Things do get broken over time. If that gets broken, then it'll be bad. But I think we'll have time. We'll be aware of the fact that it's gotten weaker, and quantum computing can potentially break it. And then we just have to hard fork a new public key encryption system. But the downside is everyone has to move their coins. So if you don't move your coins will be in something that's not safe. So so Satoshi has to wake up and move his coins if he wants to keep them.
That would be problematic. I had Michael Saylor on a while ago, actually, and he was touching on the quantum computing thing, and he was like, "Yeah, I guess it would be an issue for Bitcoin, but like, it's an issue for everything on such a grand scale that like it's almost laughable to think about Bitcoin. Like people could be firing off each other's nukes and stuff with quantum computing, and we're worrying about the Bitcoin network."
Yeah, like the whole financial industry is based off of encryption, right? Everything is protected by encryption, and yeah, if that's broken, then you can hack into Bank of America and steal everyone's money.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do you think that there are any other major threats to Bitcoin? Is it regulation? I mean, but we already touched on the laughable China bans back and forth. But do you think that there's something that governments could do to really, really affect the power of Bitcoin?
The government can and likely will just be more strict about the on and off ramps, regulating exchanges, KYCing everyone, making sure there's nothing nefarious going on, making sure all the money is tracked. I think it's gonna be more strict over time, and it's unfortunate. It would just make it harder to move money or move Bitcoin. But that's not going to kill Bitcoin. The other thing that governments can do is they can ban Bitcoin, right? You have India banning Bitcoin, China banning Bitcoin. If all the major governments come out to say Bitcoin is bad and they ban it, then that's going to really hamper adoption, like really bad. But I think we're past that point. I don't think that's gonna. I mean, Bitcoin is used by everyone now already. All these VCs have plowed a lot of money into the ecosystem. It will be hard for even for U.S. government to come out to totally ban Bitcoin. So I don't think that's going to happen. We're past the point of no return for that. So I'm not very concerned about regulation.
I mean, you have to imagine that we have enough people in power who are exposed to Bitcoin that it's very unlikely that they would allow that to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think Michael Saylor didn't at least make a call to make sure that he wasn't investing in something potentially illegal when he decided to go all in on Bitcoin. But maybe I'm wrong. But it seems like knowing, how everything's a rotating door between government and private business, I don't think we would see these huge investments unless it was pretty sure that. Yeah. And you're right about the on and off ramps. But I mean, now, and you were at Coinbase, we see Coinbase obviously has gone public. I don't think they would have done that if Bitcoin was going to be regulated away.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Bitcoin's not going away.
What do you make of the Coinbase decision to go public?
What do I make of? I mean, I think Coinbase definitely is doing a great job. I mean, it's very cool. They're leading the industry going public. I think the people are just wondering why Coinbase is using like the legacy financial system to go public as opposed to going public on the blockchain.
Right. That was interesting.
That's definitely something. I think they've thought about doing that, but it's really tough, right?
Well, especially because they're like the most compliant. Like they're the most compliant company, and seeing what's happening with Ripple.
Yeah. So I think it's good that they're doing it the traditional way, and eventually they will actually build out a system to help others go public on the blockchain. I think over time, I think that's their plan. Or I would assume that's something they're looking into. Yeah, I think it's good. And then it helps increase the valuation of all the companies in the space. Like all of a sudden, every other company is saying, hey, we should go public also. Like their valuation has increased because Coinbase is actually setting like a really high bar,
Sure.
increasing the valuation over across the space.
You touched earlier on non-fungible tokens, NFTs. What do you think of what's happening in that space? Obviously, you heard of it from the very early days. And I remember sort of talking about NFTs as things like transferring your car title or, medical records or any of these tokenizing stocks, but we've really seen it come to the forefront in the collectible sphere. Do you think that that's sustainable? Do you think that NFTs will become a huge thing in the future?
I think so. A few things. So I've touched on this topic on Twitter a few times. So I see NFTs for the collectible space as just a digital certificate of authenticity, right? Something that cannot. It's better than a paper one because it can't be copied. But in the end, it kind of just links to the artwork. So when you're selling your NFT, you're effectively just selling the certificate of authenticity. You're not really selling the artwork because the artwork is available to anyone, right? So it's a digital artwork, it's available to anyone. So you're just trading COAs basically. And I don't see a lot of value of doing that. There's definitely some value, but the amount of money people are paying for these is kind of ridiculous. I think I always see like because it's just so easy for any other artist to come into the space and just launch their own like dozens, millions of NFTs. The market will be saturated with these NFTs, and then which is already happening, and the price will drop. And a lot of people paying like $1 million for these NFTs, they'll find that there's no resale value. Like if they try to sell it, they're not the original artist selling it. No one's really gonna buy it. There's not gonna be a huge market of someone buying an NFT of a meme that was
or a tweet, right?
Or a tweet, right? That Jack Dorsey tweet sold for like millions of dollars. That's crazy. Like why would I buy someone's tweet? And it's a third party authenticating it, right? It's a third party's website, a centralized website that says this tweet is being sold. And like, why the hell would I buy that tweet for $1 million? Yeah.
So it's basically the same thing we've seen in markets, is that you get this initial wave of exuberance and then it all kind of crashes. And then we see the important use cases sort of arise from there.
Yeah. And then in the end, you're selling your brand, right? So if Paris Hilton sells an NFT, it could sell for a lot because she has a strong brand. So people are buying into her brand. But if a random artist, even like a good artist, tries to sell their NFT, they won't see the same kind of demand for their NFT, even if the image is arguably or even better than whatever Paris Hilton is selling. So you're selling your brand basically, and that only takes you so far.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But when you have a built-in audience, you can sell them anything. It could be an NFT or it could be a signed dress, and
yeah, or it could be used underwear.
For sure. In that case, for sure. Do you think that we will? Do you think that we will see eventually stocks tokenized? And I'm not talking about on crypto exchanges. I mean, in the actual stock exchange, we'll get rid of clearinghouses. We've obviously seen some moves towards that, but this is a superior way to transfer value, right? I mean, on a blockchain, fungible or non-fungible, why do we need these third parties in between and clearinghouses to tell us, when a transaction has gone through?
I'm actually not sure about that because I do agree there's definitely value of having a decentralized way of moving stock around. But in the end, it needs to be regulated, right? So it will be harder for regulatory bodies to kind of control that movement if it's decentralized. Like they wouldn't want a terrorist group to be like trading stocks for nukes, right? Stocks of Apple computers for nukes.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. They wouldn't want that to be used as currency for terrorist groups. So they would want control over that. So that's not going to really help in that aspect. And also, you have to realize decentralized system is inefficient by design, right? So if that's why stock market is centralized, so it's very efficient. If I trade if I buy and sell Apple stocks, it doesn't have to be, no one else has to know about it. It's just an interaction between me and the brokerage, right? So when it becomes decentralized, it becomes inefficient. So I'm not sure that helps if things like, if it costs like $10 to pay fees to make a trade, or even like $50, that's not going to be very good, right? So I'm not sure having that kind of stuff decentralized is the solution. Maybe as a layer 2 solution on a blockchain is possible, but we'll see what happens.
Are there any applications you can think of that blockchain is just absolutely perfect for that it's not being used for?
No. I think the perfect application for blockchain is money. That's what I'm focused on. I think Bitcoin and Litecoin is kind of the best use case of decentralized blockchain. Most other use cases don't really need a blockchain, and a centralized solution is perfectly fine. Like even for stuff like Ethereum, for most apps running on Ethereum, it doesn't really take advantage of the decentralization, the censorship resistance of Ethereum, right? So if you're trading NFTs, in the end, something centralized would be more efficient, and people wouldn't really care that much, right?
Like NBA Top Shot.
Yeah, true, right? Like NBA Top Shot, they claim to be a blockchain, but who knows, right? It's not like you can even like withdraw your card or your moment to your own wallet. So if they're using like a database in the back end and just saying it's blockchain, it works exactly the same.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So that's exactly it, right? So CryptoKitties or NFTs or whatever, it doesn't really need the decentralized aspect of Ethereum. So you're paying fees for it. You're paying high fees for this that you don't really need.
I mean, those high gas fees absolutely destroyed the lower end NFT artists.
Sure.
I mean, there were guys who, when NFTs were starting to get big, you could go mint something for $10 and sell it for 20, and it was fun. But then it became, you had to, mint something for $200 to sell it for $5. It became unsustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, gas fees have been just exceptionally high throughout the last few months. Are you confident that that's something that they can fix?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're doing to fix that. I mean, it's kind of the nature of decentralized blockchain. If it gets popular, the fees will go up because you're fighting for block space, which is a valuable commodity, right? And the solution is just to become more centralized, right? Their proof of stake work could reduce the fees, but they're also moving, in my opinion, to a more centralized model, which is okay. I mean, it doesn't really need to be fully decentralized. Something like Ethereum. Right.
So we need full decentralization for the monetary aspects of Bitcoin and Litecoin and everything else.
Yeah, money you want censorship resistance, right? You want money to be yours, right? You don't want someone else to have control or dictate how you can spend your money. But anything else, it's not that big of an issue.
Makes perfect sense. Well, I know we're up against it here with time. Where can everybody follow you and what you're up to after this?
I'm always on Twitter, though I haven't been tweeting a lot recently. Twitter handle is @SatoshiLight. Yeah, I mean, every time I tweet, I get like thousands of haters hating on me for selling. It's kind of ridiculous.
Unbelievable. It's gotten so bad.
It's gotten pretty bad. I mean, it's 4 years ago, and the price has already exceeded the previous high, right? So it's already back.
It's all because of that. It's endless hate just because you sold Litecoin.
Yeah, because they think I betrayed them, or they think I crashed the market because I sold. The whole market crashed. Yeah, it is what it is. People over time, people will forget it.
You can't win. They never forget anything in my very brief experience, unfortunately. But maybe it'll just become less important to them. Well, thank you, man, so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it, and you calling in from space.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Scott.